Low carb cornbread? I'll be the judge of that. Brant. Wrong. God, I can smell it from here. Welcome to Highfalutin Low Carb, the almost weekly web series where we find, test, and sometimes create the best low carb recipes this crazy internet has to offer. Today, we're going to be tackling cornbread. Stay tuned. Folks, I know of few things more delicious than a fresh, hot pone of southern cornbread. And yes, I said pone. Today, we're going to be making 3 of the most popular low-carb cornbread recipes online. And those are based on 3 different categories. Now, one of those is almond flour-based recipe, which naturally lends itself to almost a texture of cornmeal. The second of those is going to be coconut flour-based, for those of you who have nut allergies or just prefer the taste of coconut flour. And then the third option is something a little bit different that contains neither corn nor coconut nor almonds. It's based on whey protein and pork rinds and a couple of other things. But I've got 2 surprises that I'm super excited about that's going to make their way into a couple of these recipes, but more on that in just a minute. So let's get started at this. The first one is going to be cornbread low carb, and this is this is on the website food.com. So this is a very popular recipe. It's a basic almond flour recipe. So look in the video description. You'll see links to all 3 of these recipes, and you can go out and find those and make those yourself if you'd like. So let's get started today. First of all, I just want to say that unfortunately, all 3 of these recipes contain a sweetener, which to me is sacrilege. Now, I don't know how to tactfully say this, and I mean this sort of comedically, but I'm really serious as a heart attack too. Southern cornbread is not sweet. It is not. We do not put sugar in our cornbread. We call that Yankee cornbread or cake. So if you like sweet cornbread, by all means, go to town. But for the purpose of testing these recipes as they were written, I am going to use the sweeteners in them and see how that turns out. Obviously, the recipe creator thought that it needed to be in there, but I'm going to tell you what, if I'm making these at home, there is no sweetener going in them at all. All right, so now that that's out of the way, let's get started. This starts actually with some almond flour, and I need to sift this because my almond flour stays in the fridge, so hold on one moment. Okay, so we're going to sift this almond flour. Pretty easily done, but I store mine in the freezer just because it stays fresher longer, and I just want to make sure that there's no lumps and clumps. So then we need a teaspoon of baking powder. We just combine those. All right, now we add the cream, the water, the sweetener, and 2 beaten eggs and stir all that to combine. So we take our eggs here, just quickly give them a quick little mix before we dump them. This is 2 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream and 2 tablespoons of water. I just went ahead and mixed those together. I said I wasn't going to give measurements. You know, I don't want to take traffic away from these websites, the people who actually worked hard to create these recipes. So that's why I don't sometimes, if I'm reviewing a recipe, won't list specific ingredient amounts. Because if you want to make it and I like the recipe, I want to send you to their site to give them some traffic and give them some props for all their hard work. So anyway, and then this is, what is that? That is, oh, this is the sweetener. This recipe called for Splenda sugar substitute. I don't use Splenda. It's only a teaspoon. So I used actually a teaspoon of Swerve sweetener. And then stir to combine. This is a pretty easy recipe. There's really not a lot to it. And then carefully add a 1/4 cup of melted butter to our batter. Stir to combine. All right, so that's it. It calls for making 5 or 6 muffins. And that's another thing. I cannot stand cornbread in a muffin shape. I don't know why. It's just generally because growing up, if it was cornbread in a muffin shape, it always had sugar in it and it was sweet, I guess. Anyway, so one thing about low-carb baked goods is they tend to, so it seems, they tend to work better in smaller servings instead of just a huge big loaf of something that can't, build enough energy to rise. So a lot of times they do it in smaller servings. So I'm going to use a little brownie pan here, and I'm going to try to make 6 out of here. So I just need to give it a good spray. Let's just fill this guy up. Try to do it as evenly as possible. Well, I'm only going to get 5 out of this. I'm not going to get 6 out of this. I may have overfilled some of my other muffin spots, but we're just going to get 5 out of it this time. Clean up, we're going to put this in the oven, and we'll see what's up. Okay, so we've got 5 muffins here. This goes in a 350-degree oven for about 15 to 18 minutes. Because I got 5 out of this instead of 6, these might be a little larger than traditional, so I'll check them at about 15 minutes and go from there. See you in a minute. Okay, guys, here are our almond flour muffins. They look pretty good. The color's nice on them. So I've already set up for our next recipe, so I just wanted to show you what these look like when they came out of the oven. Smell pretty good. Not really corny, but, you know, breadish. So I'm going to put these on the stove in the back and just let them cool off, and then we're going to test them all together once we get all 3 recipes made. So I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, guys, we're back with our second recipe, and this is the coconut flour recipe, and it's also got a little bit of a secret ingredient that I am excited about. Now, I'm just going to preface this. You can probably see what it is here that I'm talking about. You see that? That is a baby corn, a little baby corn. These always make me think of Tom Hanks in the movie Big when he's at the fancy party and he's eating it like an ear of corn. Okay, so here's the deal. I was skeptical about this as well. If you are truly keto and follow that to a T, as in no wheat, no corn, no soy, you know, all of the list of things that you can't have, if you follow that, good for you. That's great. And a lot of people do, and I try to. So in that instance, this might not be the best option for you because it is corn. I kind of looked this up and was thinking, maybe this is some sort of thing from another plant and it's not really corn, because boy, the carb count is very, very different than corn. A can of, you know, like niblet corn or sweet corn is like 28 carbs, I think, and only a couple of those are fiber. It's just per serving, it's just skyrocketed. There's no way you could use that. But this baby corn, this is a 15-ounce can. Once you drain it, there's 2 servings in this can, and 1 serving is 4 total carbs. 2 of those are fiber. So really, it's effectively 2 net carbs and 4 net carbs in the whole freaking can. So if you're not eating keto and you're just eating low carb, this is an option for sure. When you looked at this, when you read the recipe that we're talking about comes from lowcarbyum.com. Again, I'm going to link the recipes down below in the video description, so be sure to check that out. So she tried it, she said, a few times by pureeing it, and preferred rather to just chop it sort of roughly so that it kind of looks like you're biting into a corn kernel. So this is 15 ounces. I'm going to chop this last little guy up here, and I'll be right back. So as you can imagine, I'm stoked to try this. I want to see how this is going to turn out. Again, if you're true keto and follow that to the T, then you might not like this. There are several ways to eat keto. One of them, some people call it lazy keto. In other words, what is it? IFF, if it fits in my macros, whatever that abbreviation is. In other words, as long as it fits in your macros, it's keto. A lot of people eat that way as well. So if that's you, try it. See what you think. If you're strict keto, maybe one of the other recipes is for you. Okay, so let's get to work here. We need 6 eggs that we are going to add 2 tablespoons of swerve or erythritol to. Now, good gracious, that's going to be sweet. And it even calls for stevia on top of that. I'm not adding the stevia. This is ridiculous. 2 tablespoons already. And I already told you how I feel about sweet cornbread, but I'm going to do it because that's what it says to do. So in a medium bowl, whisk these 6 eggs and the erythritol swerve sweetener. And one thing, you know, if you've watched, did you watch our bread battle video? If you haven't, I'll link it up here where we make regular bread, or maybe it's over here. I forget where it is. I'll link it up above so you can check out the bread battle. As you know, I'm not wild about eggy tasting bread, and 6 eggs and 1 loaf of bread is a little bit alarming just seeing it, but maybe some of this corn will knock all that down, some of that flavor down. So to that, we are now going to, we've got some butter, melted butter. We're going to slowly whisk in to these 6 eggs. Get out of the way. Okay, so now we've got our butter. In a small bowl, we're going to use our coconut flour. And again, I keep these in the freezer, so we are going to definitely be sure to sift this stuff. So this is 3/4 of a cup of coconut flour. And we're going to add the baking powder and the salt. And just give that a sift. See, this is why you sift. Look at all that. Look at all those lumps. That is why you sift. Because otherwise, that's going to be just like a big old ball in the middle of what you're eating, and it ain't going to be good. I wouldn't imagine. So don't leave that behind. Whew, coconut flour smells so good. It definitely has a sweet odor to me, so, you know, I kind of worry about that a little bit. All right, so now we're going to add, it don't tell you where to mix the corns. Stir in this corn. Gosh, I'm excited about that. Combine, and then let's add our dry ingredients. Texture's nice on this. Kind of feels like just, you know, my mama and daddy's cornbread batter. Kind of feels like that. Now, what's killing me, y'all, is to me, cornbread is only good in a cast iron skillet because part of the magic is that they're outside, especially on the bottom. We preheat the skillet, at least in my family. Preheat the skillet in the oven or even on the eye of the stove and get it warm and a lot of butter, and then pour your batter in so that it sort of fries a little bit and browns all around the edge and then bakes for the rest of it. And that crust on the bottom and the brown on top is what I love about cornbread. It's what makes a good cornbread dressing. But I'm doing it as it says here. So in this, it says we should put this in a 9x5 bread pan. Ta-ta. Sprayed. I use coconut oil spray. In the pan it goes. Boy, this batter got thick quickly. Wow. Coconut flour is extremely absorbent. I think the word is hygroscopic. I think it attracts moisture much more than, say, almond flour or any of the others do. And this got thick quickly. This has almost made a paste. I said it was like my mom and daddy's cornbread batter, but within 60 seconds, it completely changed texture. So I don't want to knock this down too much, but you got to get it to fit in the pan. So hold on, let me clean up. Okay, so this goes in 350-degree oven for about 40 minutes. So this is a long bake. So let's see what happens. We'll be back. All right, guys, 40 minutes later, and this is our coconut flour cornbread. The texture, you know, I was worried about it being really dense. It's soft. I can hear that weird egg sound, you know, from the bread battle video, the other bread battle video. Just touching it kind of has that sound. So we're going to find out. Anyway, I'm going to let this cool. I've already set it for the next recipe, and we'll meet you back here. All right, guys, now this is our third recipe. And like I said before, this one is an odd guy. So I'm excited to try this and see how it goes. And it's odd for really about 3 reasons. Number one, it's only 2 servings. It makes 2 mini skillets. Now, I don't have any little 3-ounce miniature skillets. I actually do have one, but I need 2. So that is my chance. You're supposed to preheat those little skillets in the oven and then slather them in bacon grease. Oh, sounds delicious. Sounds a lot like what we think of as traditional cornbread. But I don't have the skillets to do it in, and it specifically says not to try to combine it into a larger loaf or in a little bit larger skillet because it just doesn't get the rise. So they said that you can use oven-safe ramekins or an oven-safe custard cup. So that's what I've done. The way we're going to do this is I've put in, on a sheet pan, in a little oven-safe ramekin, I've put a ½ tablespoon of bacon fat in the bottom. We're going to preheat these without anything in them, just the grease, for 5 minutes in the oven at 400 degrees right before we put our batter in. Sounds delicious. Sounds good. All right, so the second reason this is weird is it's made with pork rinds. There's pork rinds in the batter, 1/3 cup of pork rinds, which is odd. I've never baked with pork rinds, but we're about to. The other reason I think this is so weird is there's pork rinds, Parmesan cheese, sour cream, and whey protein isolate, but also another secret ingredient. And I want to thank some of my subscribers who turned me on to this. The recipe that we're going by is from a website called Fluffy Chicks Cook. And several people of you commented on the shrimp and grits video and said, when I lamented the fact that I can get grits, cauliflower to have the texture of grits, but I miss the corn flavor. Several of you said, go check out Fluffy Chicks Cook and look at her cornbread recipe because she uses some flavorings, and this is what I'm excited about. I ordered this, and let me be so very careful with it because it is expensive as heck. This is Amaretti brand sweet corn extract, and it's a flavoring extract. It's supposed to be all natural. Now this is made for the hospitality industry, people who work in professional pastry kitchens and things like that, and this is insanely strong. We're going to use 1/8 of a teaspoon of it, and when I say 1/8 of a teaspoon, I mean pea-pie. Look how big that is against my little pinky nail there. Yeah, so it doesn't take much, but this was about $30 from Amazon. So, and I will say that when I opened the box, when it arrived by UPS, apparently just a wee little bit had leaked out and was out on the thing. I could smell it the minute I opened the box. It was that strong, and it smelled exactly like farm fresh sweet corn. So I'm going to give this a try. Again, this is Amaretti. I'm going to put a link to this down below if you want to try it yourself. It is definitely spendy, and she even uses the word spendy, and I kind of agree. It's expensive. But I'm using 1/8 of a teaspoon of it. And so if it's as good as everybody says it is, I'm going to probably be using this a lot in a lot of cornbreads and a lot of those grits. I wish I could go back and refilm that shrimp and grits video. God, I can smell it from here. It's pretty convincing. So, all right. Let's get started on this. This is an odd recipe. Again, it only makes 2 servings, so let's see what we can do. All right, so we're going to start with our dry ingredients. We've got the oven preheated to 400. We are going to start with the pork rinds. This is a 1/3 cup of ground plain pork rinds. Baconette brand is what I used. And grated Parmesan cheese. This is whey protein isolate, unflavored. Do not make the mistake and think you're picking up unflavored and it's in fact French vanilla, because you will hate yourself. So this is unflavored. Now if you remember, we used this in the soul bread recipe in the bread battle video, and that was one of my favorites. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing how this turns out. So this is some baking powder, and we just give this a mix. All right, so now we add our wet ingredients, and this is some odd wet ingredients as well. So you've got 2 tablespoons of sour cream, 1 egg. Now, she also calls for 1 single drop of stevia extract, but also says optional. So since she actually included the words optional, I'm going to optionally not use it because I'm assuming she's tested the recipe, knowing that it works without. Some apple cider vinegar. I'm assuming that is to activate the baking powder. And here's where we use our magic bullet, man, our sweet corn extract. And you've got to be so careful with this. God, I'm scared I'm going to spill it everywhere because the whole house would smell like corn forever, probably. Be like dropping a bottle of, it'd be like dropping a bottle of perfume or cologne in the bathroom. So, I mean, you got to be careful. It don't take much, buddy. It's kind of thick too. I wasn't expecting that. It's like syrup. So, make sure the lid is on there good. You don't ever want that to break open. And I'm just going to put it right back in its little house and put that up on the shelf and look at it because it costs $30. So let's mix. And again, this is odd because it's only going to make 2 servings, which might be best because sometimes when I make these recipes and it's a whole loaf, I wind up eating more calories than I should. Yeah, it's keto, yeah, it's low carb, but you know, sometimes calories do matter. And testing all these recipes, it makes me stall. Before I combine these, I'm going to go ahead and put this in the oven for 5 minutes and let these guys get melted and hot. Okay, so I'm going to add the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients. And it specifically says stir with a spatula just until smooth. So I'm going to follow directions. It's hard to do sometimes for me. Okay, so let's just give this a mix with this little spatula. There's not much to it. This thing better blow up or something because that's not a lot of batter here. You know what I'm probably going to do is, because there's so little of this, I want to make sure I have it spread evenly. I'm going to use a portion scoop to put it in the ramekin. So I'll be back when these guys are hot. Wait there. Okay, now these are hot as heck, and I put a half tablespoon of bacon fat on each one, and the instructions then say carefully brush the hot bacon fat on the sides, and for some reason I was thinking that I needed to add extra, and that's what I had reserved over here was just some melted bacon fat. But now that I see how much is in here, there's no way that can be it. They're just talking about using a brush and making sure that the sides of the ramekin or skillet, if you happen to be lucky enough to have, shut up. If you happen to be lucky enough to have a skillet. So I'm just, be careful here. These are hot. Brush the bacon fat up the sides of the pan. Again, I want to make sure that I'm evenly dividing this, so I'm going to use a portion scoop. Now, this did not sizzle the way it probably would have in a skillet. That's one of the my favorite sounds in the world is cornbread going into a skillet that's hot and been preheated and all of that. Use a, there's so little of this, you don't want to waste any of it. So let's go. Let's do this. All right, this goes in 400 degrees for 8 to 12 minutes. We'll catch you back here and we're going to taste all these things. Okay guys, here are our, look at those. Those look nice. Now we're about to taste all three of these if I can get these to cool down enough to do it. I do want to go over the macros here so we can know what we're talking about when we're judging this. This is the almond flour version that came from food.com. And here is why I do not trust online carb counts, even on a website like food.com, because the person who created this, Mr. or Mrs. Love to Son, while it's a great recipe, I'm sure, we're about to find out, their carb counts were way off. It specifically says that this thing has got if you made 6, now granted we made 5, but I'm just going to go by the 6 because I should have made those smaller. So just remember, if you make 6 like the recipe says, she said it would be 0.6 grams of total carbs per each biscuit, per each corn muffin. So just over a half a carb. Wrong. There's actually 4.7 total carbs per corn muffin, 2 grams of fiber, which makes it 2.7 grams of carbs for each of those. So while not a huge difference, you know, if you made this and you're like, gosh, that's only a half a carb each, I could eat all 6 of those. Yeah, that's a difference in 6 carbs or 4 carbs and 18. So yeah, granted you're not going to eat all of them, but don't ever trust this. Run the numbers yourself and you'll find out that a lot of times people are either ignorant of what macros and all of this means, or it's wishful thinking, or they're just careless. I'm not sure which. But just because it comes from, you know, Scripps Network and it's food.com does not mean that it is accurate at all times. These had 2.7 grams. The coconut flour loaf, which was from Low Carb Yum, it has 10.9 grams of total fat. It's got 6 total carbs, 3 of which are fiber, so it's 3 net carbs per serving. And this is, how many servings? Oh, there's 12 servings of this. So you would cut this in half and get 6 and 6, and each of those would be about 3 net carbs. And then the last one, our little beauties over here, Fluffy Chicks Cook. You get 2 servings. For each serving, it's 214 calories, 17 grams of fat, 13 grams of protein, 2 carbs, no fiber, so 2 net carbs. Okay, folks, so now all there is to do is test these things and see which we like the best. Okay, I'm going to slice this up. You want to cut this in half and get 12 servings out of it. Let's taste them in the order that we made them, because that's they're probably have cooled off that way. So this is the almond flour version. Looks good. Looks really good. Got a nice rise on it. I mean, that's pretty. So let's taste it. Instantly taste the sweetener. Omit that. Omit that. Cornbread is not supposed to be sweet, y'all. I'm sorry. If you like it, do it. But in the South, we don't eat sweet cornbread. We just order cake. I do like the texture of this. It doesn't taste like cornbread. It would be great with chili, some soup. The texture is really good. Let me put it into my microphone. Doesn't have an eggy sound. You know how the breads in the bread battle video sounded like a wet sponge? This doesn't have that. I also think the little square muffins are kind of cute. It's a brownie pan. That's the Wilton brownie pan, square brownie pan. So let's test the next one, which is the coconut flour. And this is the one, it looks good. This is the one that has the baby corn in it that I was so excited about, you know? You can see the little pieces of corn in it. And it also really doesn't have much of that egg sound. Let's see. The baby corn is interesting. It does feel like little corn kernels, but it doesn't have a lot of corn flavor, really. I was after 15 ounces of baby corn, I was kind of hopeful for a little more corn flavor, but it's not. What is overwhelming in the flavor is the coconut. It just tastes like cake. It does have a fair amount of sweetener in it. I think it's like 2 tablespoons. Ditch that, and maybe keep the corn. You see where I'm going with this. I'm thinking that we could probably combine the best of these recipes, the best things about each of them, and create our own cornbread that probably tastes better than some of it. I'm on the fence about that. I can't decide. The corn part is interesting, but the coconut flour, not so much. I don't really care for it. The texture is way too fine. It tastes kind of gummy. It's too delicate of a texture to be cornbread. Cornbread's a pretty rough, you know, which the almond flour kind of gives you. All right, so let's do the other one here. This is the weirdo, but surprisingly looks really good. Stuck to the bottom. And this is the one with the amaretti corn flavoring in it. So let's see. Let's cut it open and see what happens. Ooh, texture inside is nice too. You've got, and remember, there's no almond flour, there's no coconut flour in this. This is that whey protein isolate and pork rinds and cheese and sour cream. And more importantly, sweet corn flavor. And it smells like corn. And it is not like knock me down corn. It's actually pretty corny. Hold on. Okay. Wow. The initial reaction is that all that bacon fat, and probably the pork rinds too, instantly make it taste like a savory bread, as it should. It should not taste like a cake, like those. Wow, that is pretty convincing. The trouble I see with this is that it has to be made in these small containers. So if you had a family to feed, how many little ramekins are you going to cook, you know? Maybe that's not a big deal. That is good. What is so weird to me is that it's like bread, but there's nothing in it that's bread. Wow, that is good. Okay. That is awesome. I was expecting, honestly, to come in and say, you should take the almond flour recipe, add the crushed baby corn to it, and the sweet corn extract. And then you'd probably have something close. But I gotta say, that is good. And because it was so easy to make, it's almost like a mug cake recipe, right? So it's not a whole lot of work. It says the prep time was 2 minutes, which is a lie because it takes more than 2 minutes to grind up the pork rinds. But I want to keep eating this. I want to eat both of those. There's 2 grams of carbs per each, without a doubt. That's the winner. I probably wouldn't futz around with the recipes much at all. If anything, I might maybe try adding some of that little baby corn, a little bit of it to that. But as it stands, Fluffy Chicks Cook, Y'all done good. That is Southern cornbread, or pretty darn close for a low carber. So there you have it, folks. Cornbread. We tackled it. If I've forgotten a recipe and you know one that you love, and you're like, well, why didn't you try that one, Wes? Let me know. Put a comment down below and say, give it another go, because we're already going to have to revisit the bread battle video, because I've had lots of subscribers talk about other recipes that they want me to try. And the same could be for this. You know, I did choose one from each category: coconut, almond, and then the mystery ingredients. So maybe there's another one that I've missed, and let me know. But right now, I'm going to go eat this cornbread with some butter. All right. Bye. These videos are a way for me to stay on a low carb way of eating. Looking into the end of this camera every week, or almost every week, keeps me honest. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for coming along for the journey. If you're new to this channel, like the video below, subscribe if you're not a subscriber already. We pit recipes and low carb and keto recipes against one another and test them here in the Highfalutin headquarters to see which we like and which is the best. And if we don't find one, we'll create one. So I appreciate you joining us. Stay tuned, much more to come. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.